Hey, storyteller. When we think about our favorite books and movies, we're usually remembering how it felt to become the main character, the thrilling or emotional journey we experience through that character's eyes. So, how do we make our stories just as memorable for readers? Create a compelling protagonist. Conflict may be the essence of story, but your protagonist is its soul. He or she acts as both tour guide and vehicle for the reader during the adventure. While many aspects go into the development of a strong protagonist, figuring out 3 key elements can help you ensure your readers forge a lasting bond with your main character. What your character wants most, what's getting in the way of it, and what he or she actually needs. Welcome to this week's writer coaching session. I'm Bridget from B Squared Writer Coaching. I'm an author, editor, and your story coach, here to help you make your story powerful, polished, and publishable so you can move readers and help them experience your character's journey with maximum emotional impact. Before we get into the discussion today, I have a gift for you just for visiting my channel, the real method for creating unforgettable characters. Of course, we need to make our protagonists as realistic and three-dimensional as possible, but what about the secondary and minor characters? This PDF will help you bring every character to life in 4 easy steps without needing to write those boring, extensive character biographies. Just click the link in the description or visit b2writercoaching.com/real. That's the letter B, the number 2, writercoaching.com/real, REAL, to download your copy today. And be sure to stick around to the end of the video so you won't miss this week's Power Up, a super practical action step you can use right now in the story you're working on. As we explore this week's topic and the 3 questions we need to ask ourselves about our protagonists, keep in mind that if you're writing memoir or autobiographical stories, the protagonist is you. If you're writing nonfiction, whether it's about yourself or biographical sketches of someone else, you can and should use the same storytelling techniques fiction writers use. The main difference is that you'll need to discover rather than invent some of the key information about your character. The first element we need to figure out in order to make our protagonists powerful is what this character wants most. We might call this the character's initial want, desire, or initial goal for the story. This goal may change and often does change before the story ends, but this is the one thing that your character wants most at the very beginning of the story. This will be different from what your character actually needs. There are 3 main categories of want our character may have. Perhaps she wants to have something, she may want to do something, or she may want to be something. A character who wants to have something could be a person whose greatest desire is to have a relationship with the person she loves, or to get that new promotion at her job, or maybe you're writing fantasy and your character wants the throne. Whatever it is, your character wants to have something. If a character wants to do something, it may be to win a race or a competition of some sort, to go on a road trip before starting college, to save the world from the bad guy. It could be many different things. A character who wants to be something could include anything from a position, like the character maybe wants to be president or mayor or to become a doctor. Or it could be that the character wants to be loved or wants to be popular or something else more abstract. The choices really are almost endless. The main thing to consider here is whatever your character wants, is it relatable and powerful enough to drive the entire story? Whether that's a short story or a novel. In a short story, a character's desire may be a lot smaller than what it might need to be in order to carry the weight of an entire novel. The thing your character desires most should be something the reader could cheer for, relate to, believe in, or empathize with. The most relatable character goals are those that match universal human needs: to find love, to survive, to right a wrong, to seek justice, to succeed. To discover whether your character's desire or goal is relatable enough or powerful enough, you can ask yourself several questions. 1, what would he or she die for and why? If the answer is the character would die for his country, why? Is it to preserve freedom? Is it to seek vengeance on an enemy who attacked the country? What are the real reasons behind why your character would sacrifice so much for this thing? Maybe your character's answer to that question would be a belief, a religion, a desire for vengeance, a family member. You may be thinking, well, my story really isn't a life or death type story. So then how can I decide on a powerful enough goal for my protagonist? There are other questions you can ask. What would your character risk everything else in order to save? Would your character risk his job or his reputation in order to save a relationship? Another question is, what would be worth doing something that is so far outside your character's comfort zone they would normally never attempt it? Does your teenage character want so badly to impress a guy that she will enter the talent show even though she's shy and introverted and normally would never stand on stage in front of people, but she just wants to get this person's attention, so she goes for it? Also ask yourself, what is at stake for your character? Not just for the other people around your character, though that's important as well, but this needs to be personal. What's at stake for your character personally if this goal is not achieved? Another aspect of the character's want, desire, or goal is the motivation. We touched on this a little bit. It's the why. A goal is only as powerful as the character's motivation for seeking it. This is the key to every type of story, the why. Why does the goal matter? Why does your story matter? Every character, whether fictional or real, needs a motivation to drive the goal. Is it a broken past, a last chance, a lesson the character learned before the story began? Whether that lesson's true or false doesn't matter. It could be a false lesson. The character thinks that anytime he gets close to someone, that person gets hurt. So it's a lesson, yes, but it's a false belief. That would be a powerful motivator for some character's goals. Maybe it is a lie that the character believes that motivates his or her desires or goals. Even the desire to defeat evil requires a more specific personal motivation, or the story will feel flat. For example, in the Harry Potter series, Harry doesn't fight Voldemort just because he's evil. He fights Voldemort to honor his parents' sacrifice and to protect his friends. If you're finding this helpful so far, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you won't miss future writer coaching sessions. Now, on to the second element we need to consider to make our protagonist powerful. What's standing in the way of the character's greatest desire? These are obstacles, conflicts, dilemmas, all those things that populate the middle of the story and get our character into trouble over and over again while he or she is trying to achieve the goal. If we make the goal easy, there's no story. Now here we might be tempted to automatically think about all the external conflicts and obstacles that thwart our protagonist along the journey. These external conflicts are important and should be included in your story, but really to make our protagonist more powerful and compelling, we need to focus on the internal conflicts. External conflicts drive the plot, while internal conflicts drive change, character transformation, and ultimately the character arc, which forges that strong connection between the reader and the character. To consider the difference between the impact of external conflicts versus internal ones, think about high action movies that you've watched. Maybe the action itself was super intense throughout the whole movie, but the story left you feeling flat. That's because the conflicts were all external. There really wasn't a good internal conflict for the characters involved. That's what connects readers with the story. For more on including conflicts and dilemmas in every scene of your story, check out this video on the one thing every scene needs, linked above and also in the description. But what are some internal conflicts our main characters can wrestle with? Well, what is your character's greatest fear? Once you've figured that out, make sure he or she has to face that fear in some form or other during the story. In my novel, Keeper of Shadows, Lysanne fears that her inadequacies will bring harm to those she loves. She's also afraid of dying alone and being unworthy of love. Another internal conflict many protagonists face is the lie, or some call it a misbelief, the character holds on to at the beginning of the story. This could be a misbelief about the self, the situation, or the world. In my novel, Lysanne has been led to believe that she must be useful, in other words, perform some kind of useful work, in order to have worth. This drives many of her decisions and her mindset throughout the book. Other internal conflicts you may use for your protagonist are a sense of guilt over something. Does your character have secrets? What about blind spots about others or himself? This can include a refusal to recognize a loved one's flaws, certain prejudices, or preconceived ideas that blind the character to possible options for a solution. What embarrasses your main character? That can create lots of great internal conflict if you throw that character into a very embarrassing situation. And again, what drives her? Are there opposing or unhealthy obsessions, desires, interests, or joys your character has that drive her to take certain actions? These are also excellent sources of internal conflict. And the third element we need to figure out in order to make our protagonist powerful is this character's true need. This is what the character actually needs, as opposed to just what he or she wants at the beginning of the story. This is something the character will figure out as the story progresses, that either he or she needs himself or herself, or that people the character loves or cares about may need. As I said earlier, the protagonist's goal often changes throughout the story. So he or she may begin with the thing he wants most, the initial desire, and that will start out as the goal. But along the way, he discovers a need that's more important than that initial desire. And depending on the character arc you're following for your protagonist, he or she may decide to abandon the initial desire and pursue the true need, which would be in a positive character arc, or maybe clings to the initial desire, especially if it's an unhealthy desire or a harmful desire. The main character in a negative character arc may cling to that despite discovering what the true need is, and that will lead to his or her downfall in some way. For more on the 3 types of character arc, check out this video linked above, and I'll link it in the description as well. The true need may be an object, an action, a change, either in circumstance or perspective, belief, or leadership, or the need may be information or a revelation. Often the characters' want and need are opposed to each other, and the character can't have both, so has to choose one or the other. For example, in Keeper of Shadows, Lysanne's initial greatest desire is to be accepted, which transforms into a goal of finding a new home and safety after she's banished. So that's pretty early on in the story and becomes this main story goal for most of it. But her true need is to confront the antagonist for her people. To do that, she must accept and embrace gifts that at first frighten her, and in some instances, she doesn't really believe she has. The character's greatest desire and true need may also take opposite forms, one being external, the other being internal. Often the initial goal or desire is external, while the true need is more of an internal state. For example, Lysanne's desire for a new home and safety, that's external. But her need to face the antagonist, that may seem external as well, but in order to face the antagonist, what she truly needs is to embrace and accept her gifts, which is an internal decision. If you haven't done so already, don't forget to download your real method for creating unforgettable characters. Remember, just click the link in the description or go to b2writercoaching.com/real to grab your copy. For today's power-up, make a list of possible desires for your protagonist. This would be your character's initial goals or greatest desire, and maybe think about some internal and external desires your character could have. Then jot down why your character would want those things. Maybe once you've narrowed your list down to 1 or 2 that inspire you the most, consider what is your character's motivation behind those desires. Then skip ahead to element 3, the character's true need. Is the one thing your character actually needs most, or the thing that people your character cares about need most, is it opposed to your character's initial desire? Can your character have both? In some stories, it is possible to have both. In deciding to pursue the true need, the character may end up accomplishing or receiving the initial desire as well. But in some cases, the character has to sacrifice that initial desire to obtain the true need. So make a list of some possible true needs your character could have. And if you know your character's greatest fear or misbelief, the lie your character believes, or possibly other internal conflicts your character faces, like guilt over something, these things can help you figure out what the true need is, because if your character is afraid of something or feeling guilt over something, maybe the need is to face those fears or to forgive him or herself and release the guilt. Building these 3 elements into your character's journey can make the protagonist of your story relatable and powerfully compelling for the reader. With all the work you're doing to make sure readers will forge a strong connection with your protagonist, the last thing you want to do is use words that create a barrier between readers and your characters. Check back for next week's writer coaching session to discover what these words are, called filter words, and how to eliminate or avoid them in your storytelling. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you won't miss it. Once you've discovered your protagonist's initial goal or desire and the true need, the next question you need to figure out is whether he or she will fulfill or achieve either of those by the end of the story. That depends on which type of character arc your protagonist is following. Watch this video to explore the 3 types of character arcs and to decide which fits your story best. Another powerful way to connect readers with your protagonist is to give him or her a unique voice. Check out this video to find out how. And let's power up your storytelling.